Silent features of 1956 Constitution and its SLO number 2.2.5. The first Constitution of Pakistan, which is the Constitution of 1956, was implemented on 23rd March 1956 after the fall of 3 governor generals, 4 prime ministers and 2 constituent assemblies. Pakistan took almost 9 years to frame its first constitution, and in previous lecture we have already discussed the reasons why we were not able to make our constitution. Today we are going to discuss the silent features of 1956 constitution. First, this constitution was a written constitution. This is a written and lengthy document. It consists of 234 articles divided into 13 parts and 6 schedules. So the Constitution of 1956 was a written constitution. A constitution is called written constitution if it is drafted by any constituent assembly. Such constitutions are called written constitutions because they are present in a shape of a book. So these such constitutions are called written constitutions. So the Constitution of 1956, it was a written constitution with 234 articles, 13 parts and 6 schedules. It was a flexible constitution. The constitution could be amended through a process requiring the amendment to be passed by at least a 2/3 majority of parliament. However, the president had the right to veto the draft, which then could be overridden by simple parliamentary majority. So this constitution was a flexible constitution. A flexible constitution is such a constitution in which amendments could be made easily. It was possible to make amendments in this constitution by at least 2/3 majority of the parliament, and president had the right to veto the draft. However, his veto could be overridden by simple parliamentary majority. The next according to the Constitution of 1956, the name of the country was adopted as the Islamic Republic of Pakistan, and objective resolution was included as a preamble of the Constitution. We have already discussed objective resolution in a previous lecture. And according to the 1956 Constitution, federal system was introduced. The Constitution provides for a federal system in the country. Powers were divided between center and the provinces. Obviously, when the constitution was federal, powers had to be divided, and the subjects were divided into 3 lists: federal list, provincial list and concurrent list. On the federal list, the federal legislature was assigned to make laws, and on provincial list, provincial legislature was making legislation for the provincial list, and on concurrent list, the center and province were together were assigned to legislate on concurrent list. In concurrent list, such subjects were included which were of a provincial, which were under provincial domination but of national interest. For example, minerals. On such subjects, province and center were together making laws for such subjects. And next is that the Constitution of 1956 introduced unicameral legislature. A unicameral legislature is a legislature in which there is only one house. So only one house was made, that was the National Assembly. The legislature could consist of a single house. Both wings of country were given representation in National Assembly. The National Assembly consists of 300 members and 150 members were drawn from each wing. And parliamentary system was introduced according to the constitution. A parliamentary system was adopted, and according to it, president was the head of the state and the prime minister was the head of the government. So the prime minister was the symbolic head of the state, while the actual powerhouse was the prime minister, who was the head of the government. and president could be a Muslim of at least 40 years of age. The tenure of his office was 5 years. In case of internal or external danger, he could declare a state of emergency in country. He was authorized to appoint governors, the judges of Supreme Court, Auditor General and Advocate General. And the prime minister, he was to be the leader of parliamentary group and was thus indirectly elected by the people. He could choose his cabinet from the members of National Assembly, and the cabinet was answerable to the assembly. So the prime minister, who was the head of the government, was the leader of the house, and he was the leader of parliamentary group, and he was indirectly elected by the people. Provincial autonomy was crucial in the constitution to a great extent because center was made more powerful as compared to provinces. And Islamic law, it was stated that no law could be passed against the teachings of Quran and Sunnah. And free judiciary and independent judiciary in the country. A Supreme Court interpret the Constitution, advise the state whenever required, and decide the issues whenever required. So a free judiciary was introduced through Constitution of 1956 because judiciary was free from executive control with wide powers, and the Supreme Court was assigned to interpret the Constitution, advise the state, and decide on constitutional as well as other issues. Fundamental rights including freedom of movement, freedom of speech and expression, freedom to choose profession and freedom to profess religion, right to life, liberty and property were given through Constitution. And two languages were adopted as national language of Pakistan, Urdu and Bengali both, because the linguistic issue, it was a very serious issue, and the best solution was to adopt two languages as the national languages. So Urdu and Bengali both were adopted as the national language of Pakistan.